would you all be upstanding for the academic party?
If you call me up, I'll say a few words, but I'll try not to speak too long. Please to be kind and not try to explain. I'll probably get it all wrong. What does it mean when you promise someone, no matter how hard or whatever may come? It means that I won't give in, won't give in, won't give in.
So, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. So I'm just going to offer two things before I invite the Vice-Chancellor up. The first is to say a very happy Diwali to everyone. Diwali is a very important time in the year. It's a time to think about light and taking ourselves from ignorance to knowledge, and I think that's a really lovely way to place Philippa's lecture today. And the second thing I wanted to do was offer a karakia for us all to come together. The karakia I'm going to use is a story of the waka takitimu as it passes through a westerly wind, then a southerly wind into a place of calm and quiet. And what it's telling us is that if we're together and if we're built well together, we can get through storms and reach places where we can create and learn and have new knowledge. So whakatakata hau ki te uru, whakatakata hau te tonga, kia mākina kina ki uta, ki mā taratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atakora, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, te hei mauri ora. And with that, I'd like to introduce our Vice-Chancellor, Professor David Murdoch, to start proceedings. Thank you very much.
Tēnā koe, Suetonia. E ka mana, e ka reo, e ka mauka whakahi, e ka wawa, e ka potaka o ka toka tuku iho, tēnā koutou. Welcome everybody. I usually start by saying, for those who don't know me, my name is David Murdoch and I'm the Vice-Chancellor, but it always feels a bit awkward here, given that so many people know me. But it is absolutely wonderful being here today, and it's my job to welcome you all, so welcome you all to the celebration of Philippa Seaton's promotion to Professor this wonderful day. It's become a bit of a byline because we've had quite a few inaugural professorial lectures this year to say that this is actually one of the great pleasures of my job, is being part of them, and it really is being able to hear wonderful academics from all over the university, and my background, as you know, is in health sciences, and taking on the Vice-Chancellor role earlier this year, being able to hear people from all around the campus our campuses has been wonderful, and hearing a lot about, learning a lot about everybody who's spoken, things we didn't know before, and of course the topic areas have been absolutely fascinating. So, but particularly keen to be here today. There's another inaugural professorial lecture later today. It's Tim, he's up at the back, and for me, very personal, is I was Dean when I supported both applications, so absolutely I wouldn't have missed today for anything. As you know also, we're on a bit of a catch-up at the moment because of COVID disrupting a lot of our inaugural professorial lectures, and it's really been great to get back into the swing of things at the moment. We're really on a catch-up. My role is mainly to welcome you all here, and so a big welcome from the university community, from the wider Christchurch community, and probably beyond, to those who are here in person and those who are online. And I know that there'll be many people watching either live or delayed online as well, so welcome to you all. But I do want to give a special welcome, some special guests here today, and I suspect other people sitting in the front row. Philippa's whānau, Philippa's husband Rennie, son Robbie, Philippa's brother Chris, and brother-in-law James. And I understand there are other family who are joining online. It's a big, big welcome, and it's really special having you here today. Suze is going to give a bit more detail about Philippa's career. But I do, before I hand over to Suze, I do just want to make a few personal comments. I have had the pleasure of really following the Centre for Postgraduate Nursing Studies for, I guess, a large portion of its life in terms of being part of this campus at a time when it was, probably I started shortly after it had started, and it's following the journey along the way. From being relatively small, small beginnings to certainly at the moment, I think it's had probably the biggest growth in student numbers of any part of the university. And I think that's over the last year, it's had the greatest increase of any unit within the whole university. And that's quite a significant change over many years. And I know Philippa will be acknowledging a lot of people who have been responsible for this, but I do want to acknowledge Philippa's personal contribution, which has been huge, and her leadership has been absolutely phenomenal. And I was able to watch that firsthand for many years. But it's Philippa, the current situation of nursing, which is our nursing footprint for the university here based in Christchurch. You have a lot of the success has been because of your efforts and your leadership. And I've said many times that Philippa is one of the most networked people I know. And networked in a really positive, constructive way. I mean, in terms of engaging and forming very positive collaborations in what is often a fairly crowded and competitive space. That's nursing, and Philippa really has a huge reputation at working collaboratively within across the sector, and just, I do want to acknowledge that as well. So big congratulations, so well deserved. I'm really, really thrilled to be here, and I just look forward to your lecture. And I'd now like to hand over to Suzanne Pitama just to give a bit more background to your career. So tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Hutia te rito o te harakeke. Hutia te rito o te harakeke. Kei hea te komako e ko. Ki mai ki aho. He aha te mea nui. He aha te mea nui o te ao. Maku e ki atu. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata hi. Tēnā koe, tēnā koe Philippa. As Suetonia and I discussed your IPL today, that waiata kept coming to my heart, and many of you will be familiar with it. It's actually the words of an amazing woman, Mere Ngāroto from Northland, so a bit warmer than down here in Te Waipounamu, from a Te Aupōuri woman who was advocating for the safety of people coming onto her land. And she said those very famous words, which I've just shared with you. And many people have translated it to say, what is the most important thing? It is people, it is people, it is people. But actually, the true meaning behind those words weren't about us as individual people, but actually was Mere Ngāroto talking about the importance of, as we impact one person, we impact their whole network, whether it's through their whakapapa or or their system or their culture, whatever they're involved in. And Philippa, as currently in my role as Dean, but actually I remember your first day here at school at Te Wharewananga o Otago, ki o Tautahi, and have been able to watch you come in as the new shoot of the harakeke and quickly not just strengthen the harakeke bush that you're in, but actually tend to the whole pā, which is our Centre for Nursing. And I'm grateful that Marie and I have kind of co-wrote this in a way that Marie's done some research about what your peers think of you. And I thought, what better bio to give, because we all know Philippa, that's why we're here, but what better bio to give than the words of her colleagues. So thank you, Marie, for doing this. Nothing's dodgy, I have ventured it. So, under Philippa, leadership in the department has experienced exponential growth, evidenced by a number of programs we offer, increased number of student enrolments and academic and clinical staff appointments. She has demonstrated how to guide a diverse team, provide them with opportunities to develop their strengths and progress their career, while also ensuring that their contribution is acknowledged and valued. A key strength of Philippa is her drive to always seek to understand the facts of the situation at hand and, when appropriate, solicit advice and consult with others internally and externally to the university to promote ongoing quality standards within the programs. Since her appointment to HOD, she's developed strong sector collaborations. This is directly related to her academic integrity and professional standing. Her approach to the staff is always respectful, inclusive and equitable. This has resulted in a strong, cohesive team who has worked together to deliver these programs of study with over 550 postgraduate students. Philippa is a wonderful, supportive leader and boss. She's a boss girl. She's awesome. Philippa is approachable, skilled, and most importantly, is genuinely caring. Philippa is someone who encourages and leads by example. Philippa is exceedingly supportive and kind and always has an open door and makes time for her team and staff. Philippa is driven, supportive, and supported the expansion of the department, doubling student enrolment in recent years and the development of the new degree. Philippa is forward-thinking in her direction of the department, leading and supporting developments. Philippa appreciates the big picture and the long view in a way that leads to collaboration over rivalry and also leads to a rather useful trait of not speaking hastily, but being considered and measured. Philippa, I see her strength as an educator. She's very skillful, in particular in her research methodology and methods instruction, and is so student-focused. I like this one. She is the best boss I've had. She is professional, open-minded, and student and research focused. Philippa, you are a taonga, and it's a great privilege that I have using the voice of your team to introduce you to your IPL today. Kia ora and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Kotirana, ko Airana, ko Ingarangi, te whenua o Oku Tupuna. I te tau 1885, ka haere Oku Tupuna ki Aotearoa. Ka tipu au tātahi te wakaenga o tōku whānau. Ko te tumuake a o te Pakapu Pairua nehi. Ko Philippa Seaton tōko ingoa. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Thank you, and thank you for the introduction, everybody. It's amazing to have everybody here and everybody that's online that I can't see. Thank you for being here and listening. Because what I want to talk about today is about nursing. And so I've called this Nursing and Ambition. See if I can get the system working. I'm feeling very happy that this is 2022. And this actually is the year of the nurse educator. How better could they have done than that, having this lecture coming for me then? But I do just want to hark back to 1922, when Otago first had an ambition for nursing. So the first nurses were registered in New Zealand in 1901. We were the first in the world to actually do that. But by 1922, the University Council was actually thinking about having nursing. Prior to that, they'd been in hospitals. And they very ambitiously said a curriculum will be 2 years of university work, 2 years of ward work and hospital training, and then a final year of specialised nursing education. And in that final year, there could also be registered nurses, people who are already nurses from other programs come in and do advanced specialist practice like we do in postgraduate nursing. So that was a very exciting time for them, and they got it started. And unfortunately, a year before the first people came out of the program, they withdrew the funding. And nursing kind of fell over at that point. But there was a nurse who graduated in 1930. And could I just give my thanks to the nurse's son, who actually, Mr. Bob Penty, who donated all his mother's nursing documents to the Hocken collection. And I think he's captured something really important about nursing at Otago, that actually we do go back so far as that. And this was Winifred Fraser, who was the nurse who graduated, and the other nurses went off to Victoria and finished there. However, this is her diploma that she actually got from Otago University. So it was an important start for nursing at Otago, and whilst it didn't kind of carry on at that point, it did give us a starting point. So I'd like to talk a little now about the programs that we have in the Centre for Postgraduate Nursing Studies, but I'd really like to mention some important people at that time. Well, the staff, I'm getting to that. The people that came before me. Now, I know there's a lot of people a lot further back than that, but there was 3 people who did have quite an influence on me, and Marie Crowe is here today, and she's actually the first professor that was a nurse here, so that was incredibly valuable to us. And the generosity and help and support that you've given Marie is incredibly valuable to the department. She still does work a little bit for us, but in that little bit contributes a huge amount. So I want to say the thanks from nursing to you for that. And Dr. Bev Burrell, I see you sitting there. Bev was the head of department before me and was still in the department when I came. And again, the support and the leadership to the department that you gave was incredibly important. You know, I'm only carrying on the journey from what other people have actually contributed, and my thanks to you, because that was a lot of guidance went on there, and growing the earlier programs. And Lisa Whitehead was the other person. She has left the university and gone to work in Australia now, but equally she had an amazing research capacity and started the path of research within postgraduate nursing, and I think that was a really important step for us to be taking. So from those people, you know, I picked up where they'd started to carry on. And it was an interesting thing because I came from outside of Otago University, so I came with a very fresh view of what it could be, and could see many opportunities of what Otago could actually do. So it was in 1997 the centre actually finally started, having having not been going for some years. And it was solely postgraduate school at that time, and it was all post-registration postgraduate, which was an important thing for nursing at that time. Previously, everybody had gone to Wellington if there was any post-registration ongoing learning to do. And so I think that was really important for Te Waipunama in the South Island to actually have somebody here. So the programs that they were offering were including the Master of Health Sciences, which is in nursing, and the development of the Master of Health Sciences in Nursing Clinical. And these were the programs for nurses who were going to go on. And there was a really important contribution to nursing because it developed that specialist skill and specialty practice for nurses. And the clinical degree actually allowed for the nurse practitioners to start their program as well. And so it was that whole new scope of practice. And it's really shows the importance of the educators who work with those nurses, because the end point of all this is what difference it's going to make in clinical, in developing healthcare and developing nursing practice. So we do have large numbers of students come from all over the South Island into those programs, and it's partnerships with our clinical providers that are a really important thing to us, the collaborations that we have that make a difference in these programs. So more recently, the nurse practitioner programs have developed into the Master of Advanced Nursing Practice. So their separate scope of practice now has a degree of its own. And again, it's a really important progression for nursing. You know, when we look where nursing has come from in that time in hospitals, where nurses did really great things, I have to say. That was me 47 years ago, working in Christchurch Hospital here, my starched apron. But nursing's gone a long way now in what they actually provide in practice. These degrees are a really important demonstration of what they bring to clinical and to healthcare. So we are now working with a number of other universities in the nurse practitioner training program, and that's another great part of collaboration. I think nursing's like that. You know, when you're talking about the networks and that I have, that's because nursing's like that. Not quite as somebody asked me whether I knew every nurse in New Zealand. I don't, but I do know quite a few of them. And that's what makes us able to do these things that are important for clinical practice. So we work with Auckland and Victoria University in the nurse practitioner training program to try and develop further the nurses that we actually need out there, looking after people in areas where perhaps they're in rural areas or, you know, care is absolutely needed. Nurse practitioners make a huge contribution in that. So you can see I have many interesting parts in my job. The other program that we offer in postgraduate nursing is the Master of Nursing Science. And this, we developed this around the time I started at Otago University, and this was the first ever graduate entry pre-registration program in the country. And a huge congratulations to the team from our department that actually developed this, because this was an enormous thing to develop. They had to change, the Nursing Council was changing the regulations, there was legislation that needed to be changed to even let this happen. So everybody's hard work and the leadership that Dr. Virginia Jones and her team showed in this has been an amazing thing for this, and continues to go on, because I know every single one of you that teaches in this program is doing an amazing job with those students. So that was a pretty exciting thing, because that changed nursing in New Zealand, to give this other group of people who could come in with a degree already and bring the skills and the life experiences and everything they had to contribute something to nursing. And they tend to be a group of students who's incredibly committed to what they're doing because they have made that decision. So it's very exciting to be involved with that program. So 90 odd years after Otago's first go at it, we did get a program that actually trains nurses to be registered. So I think we have done well there. And there's 6 other programs doing that now. So that is giving good numbers of students coming out there into clinical practice to help with that. So the other thing we have been doing is around international initiatives. It's a really difficult time for nursing at the moment internationally. Well, healthcare, let me not just say nursing here. Healthcare is in incredibly difficult circumstances at the moment. And I think one of the important things we need to do with that is build our international collaborations, because nursing is global. It is not just where we're sitting here, and like, it is important, the people that we look after close to us, but it's also nursing's reach goes far beyond that, and we can do many things that can help make global contributions. So we're building relationships internationally. COVID hasn't actually helped that a whole lot, but that's made the situation even more dire in a lot of places. But we're working where we can. The other thing that we're currently doing at the moment is working with the National League for Nursing in the United States to gain accreditation from them about our program, because through that we can also make a greater global contribution with people doing things with us who can then go and work in other areas and bring a contribution for that. So there's many people to hold hands with out there. One of the other groups that we do a lot of work with is the Graduate Entry Nursing International Network, and they are here, Australia, the UK would be the largest number of members they have, but it is an international network all around the entire world. And what we're trying to do through that group is actually sharing research and educational innovations about graduate entry pre-registration programs, so that we can develop the programs further and maximise what those graduates can actually do in the healthcare system, because the end point is always those patients for nurses. So there's a website there if anybody wants to go and look at it. So collaborating with others for better healthcare. It's a really great thing working at Otago University, and when I'm talking about Otago, I am not just meaning Christchurch. We are predominantly here, and Christchurch has been hugely supportive of nursing, but actually our nurses are across the South Island, and we do have staff who sit in Dunedin, and we have a little hub down there, but our reach is everywhere. It's to the west coast, down into the southern region, in South Canterbury, Nelson, Marlborough. Our nurses are everywhere. So who are the partners that I'd really like to acknowledge today? We would never be building this future nursing workforce without the collaborations with healthcare that education has. I am very committed to education. I've been an educator for, I did work this one out, 37 years now. It's changed a lot over that time, and I can still see there's lots of opportunities to do. But all the best things that have ever happened have been because they're collaborations with our clinical partners. And we have amazing clinical partners. If you're here or if you're online, can I just say how much we appreciate what you do for nursing education. Because Te Whatu Ora in Canterbury, South Canterbury, Otago and Southland, the West Coast and Nelson Marlborough all work incredibly closely with us. I'm very fortunate that I have roles within my work where I am part of the Council of Deans of Nursing and Midwifery across Australia and New Zealand, and sit on the executive group for that. But what that actually allows to happen is these closer collaborations that we have, because the nurse executives of the South Island invite me to all their meetings so that we're working together on what's good for nursing. And I just think they're amazing partners to have. The directors of nursing, you know, I constantly meet with the directors of nursing so that we together can do what's good for nursing and for patients. Primary healthcare organisations, Pegasus works very closely with us, and I have to say a big thank you to all the leaders of these groups. They all sit on our advisory board and actually help us keep our direction where it needs to go, and I think that's an amazing way of working together. Community organisations, Nurse Maud has worked very closely with us for a lot of years, and I'll talk a bit more in research about that too, because again, it's people partnering with us that make the difference. There's NGOs that work with us. The Donald Beasley Institute in Dunedin works closely with some of our academics down there, and the rural healthcare organisations. And we have been doing a lot of work in Ashburton with Te Whatu Ora down there and contributing what we can. We will keep trying to get more students too, so you can have more nurses out there. But I also want to acknowledge our partners in nursing education, because the educational providers in New Zealand are incredibly good because, well, especially us, we're lucky we have Te Waipuna for ourselves. But the Council of Deans of Nursing and Midwifery, who work across all the universities, it is collaborative, I would have to say. It is not a competitive where everybody's trying to work against each other. We have really good collaborations with them. So Victoria University in Wellington, we have close colleagues there, and they link with us, and we have research plans with them. The University of Auckland, as I've said, we already had close relationships with them. Auckland University of Technology works with us, as does Massey, and the newly established nursing program in Waikato will probably be, you know, a future partner in things. University of Canterbury has always worked quite closely in their health sciences, and they have nurses over there and programs, and they have a program with Te Pukenga and Ara, and so they're part of that group too, of the different ways that we can work towards nursing. And probably the other very close educational collaboration we have is with the University of Melbourne, who have been partners with us for the entire time of our graduate entry program. They were very early with the graduate entry programs in Australia. So everybody can research, develop, and do things better for nursing generally if we work together. And the generosity of all these people, I think, if there's two things that I'd say are the most noticeable thing to me in the time I've been in this role, it's about opportunities and the things that have come up. If you just notice there's a possibility there, we've had some amazing opportunities. But I think an incredibly important thing has been the generosity of people, that they want to work with you and they want to have that network. And when I appear on their doorstep, they are so willing that I think people in healthcare are very generous. So also we have academic collaborations within the University of Otago, and this is something that I'm always saying to my colleagues in other places, you know, like Otago is wonderful for that. If people are saying, well, it's really hard to get, you know, partners in other disciplines and professions, that has never been the case at Otago. Maybe I'm just pushy when I go to people's doors, but it is incredibly generous the way people have worked with us. Many of the departments in the medical school through Dunedin, Christchurch and in Wellington have worked with nursing on projects. Mihi, the Maori Indigenous Health Institute, have helped us from day one of our programs with the Master of Nursing Science particularly, and helping us as a department with Hauora Māori and knowing how to integrate that into our programs and do a better job with that. The Simulation Centre, I have to say thank you to that because we're down at your place every week, and it's wonderful to be able to work so closely with you in bringing to nursing what nursing needs in this modern world. The interprofessional education program has been really important, so we're working across Otago in developing all the IPE things, but we also work beyond Otago into the health sector where we're doing interprofessional education. There's a group of people I work with in doing that. The Pacific Centre and the Associate Dean Pacific has been very helpful in guiding us in terms of how we need to be responsive to the needs of Pacific students and the populations that they serve. Population Health, our thanks to them, they do a lot of research with us, and actually they've been doing research for us too, some of our programs where we've needed a step away to be able to look at the programs. Lee Thompson in Population Health was incredibly helpful working with us on that. But we have common interests with them, so it's fantastic. And I have to say, pathology and biomedical sciences are really good at working with us. We do have a scientist with us in nursing, which is absolutely wonderful and adds things to us. But some of our research we do that we're doing with nurse wards as well as with people out of pathology and biomedical sciences. But always there is such a willingness to work with us. It's amazing. School of Physiotherapy has worked with us, nurses and physios. We always have something in common to get on with there. And I have to say a special thanks to the Dean's Department across every Dean that I have worked with here. Never for 1 minute does it feel like nursing isn't, a partner in everything that goes on at UOC. However, I do have to say thank you to our Deans and our Vice-Chancellor now. They do recognise nursing's needs as well, because they're not always just the same as everybody else's, but it's that inclusive, thing that is just incredibly helpful. So that's much appreciated. So, nursing research. I will try not to talk too long. The nursing research that we undertake is really important at this time. But if we look back to where we started, I had to bring Florence Nightingale in here somewhere. The lady with the lamp. The most interesting thing about Florence Nightingale to me wasn't the putting the hands on the fevered brows. It was the fact that the nurse with the lamp was shining a light on research and statistics. And I think this is something that's gone really unnoticed in her career. And since then, because she was actually the first woman member of the Royal Statistical Society. And her work in Crimea actually made a huge difference to the use of statistics in healthcare. And she was the first person to do it. So she did get tied up with the hands on the fevered brows for a lot of years, but I think to bring it back to her research contributions is a really great thing for nursing. She developed these innovative, nobody had done kind of research diagrams, statistical things like this. So she did a whole lot of that, and it made a huge difference to how nursing addressed what they needed to do to nurse people in difficult situations. So she did a great job. So what are we doing in the Centre for Postgraduate Nursing Studies? Important for me is the fact that the overall focus of all the research in our centre is about undertaking projects with high translation to practice value and clinical impact. Because for me, that's what educators are actually there for and researchers are there for, to translate that. So we do other things. We have some very skilled researchers, but this is what my focus is about this. So we do this through the research that our staff undertake, the research that our partners collaborate with us, with our staff, and that we do with other health disciplines, and that's all an incredibly important thing. The other thing I would like to mention here is the projects that the students do, because we have pre and post registration students who all have to do a project, varying from a 30-point one semester kind of project into PhDs down the line. But everybody does either a project, a dissertation, or a thesis. And I think that's such a fundamental basis for nurses to think about evidence for practice and what they'll do out in practice, that they actually have to do it with us. So it's a really important thing. I just would like to mention my research beginnings, because people make a big difference when you do nursing research. Well, they did for me anyway. And there was two people that made a huge difference for me and taught me in some ways what I would hope to aspire to as a nurse, an educator and a researcher. Nancy Deakerman, who probably any nurse in this room will actually know who she is, because she was an incredibly famous nurse, educator, who wrote all sort of seminal books about how we should do it. I went to a talk of hers once at a conference, and I went up to her afterwards. That's absolutely amazing, your work's wonderful, and I would like to do something, and my master's thesis, I'm going to do something about your work. And she took me on as a student. She said, I'll supervise you. So she did this in her own time from the United States when I was actually studying here, and was just the most amazing person of teaching me about what education means and what nursing research means, and that stayed with me my entire life. I did a whole lot of postdoc stuff with her as well, and she's a brilliant nurse. The other person was Anne McMurray, who I went and did my PhD with in Australia. So I left the country and went to Australia. And she was pretty much the same. She was just all about what is this contribution to nursing, and amazing researcher, and actually is still there researching. And they were both amazing academics who were interested in education. So I found my perfect niche really, and they were the people that gave me a starting point. So we've developed it from there to have quite a lot of research partners that we do actually work with. And I'm not claiming all these research partners for myself. It's our department, people you see sitting out in front of us here, who work with all these people. And I'm just fortunate to be on a lot of the projects with them. So University of Melbourne is a core research partner of ours. I belong to a group called the Education Simulation and Patient Safety Collaborative, because again it's this thing about patients being the end point. The Patient Safety for Nursing Students Collaborative is another group of Australian colleagues that I work with. We research with the Council of Deans of Nursing, obviously, and the Australasian Collaboration for Benchmarking and Educational Research for graduate entry programs. Te Whātua Ora are good research partners of ours, Nurse Maud, Centre for Free Radical Research and Population Health. So the Education Simulation and Patient Safety Collaborative actually specifically look about patient outcomes. That's what we're researching. They're all educators, as you can see. Some of them are in high positions in the universities they work in. But it's about advancing scholarship and looking at that impact of the educational initiatives. So these are some of the projects that we've done. I've just used an example of things. Looking at patient safety through simulation. And I think this stuff's becoming even more important now when the clinical placements are incredibly difficult, because it's hard life out there in clinical. So how can we supplement that? How can we have the nursing students coming out who are ready for practice in a way that is helpful, is what some of these projects are looking at. So we've done a project around what's the gold standard of simulation if you're going to substitute it for clinical practice, and this is highly relevant at the moment with the Nursing Council actually looking at what clinical hours students are going to have, and they're reviewing it. And then looking at the contemporary patient safety priorities and how simulation fits with that, and again at clinical placements. So the Trans-Tasman agreements mean that things we do across New Zealand and Australia are very valuable to both countries, so it's good to be able to have that influence there. The Patient Safety for Nursing Students was a project that was led by Tracy Levitt-Jones in Australia, and what that has done is developed a website for nursing students. It's an amazing website if you ever want to go and look at it, and it outlines things for students to understand patient safety, because that's one of the biggest problems in the healthcare system, is things going wrong, and we need to prepare students for going out into a system like that they know what to do. So this has been very useful, and I think given 2022 is the World Health Organisation's Global Patient Safety Challenge year, that's their theme for this year, and looking at medication safety and such things, it's the more we can do with nursing students to have them ready to go out into practice, the better it is. Some of the projects we're doing with our partners at the moment. Chris Moyer in our department has been leading the project around pressure injury prevention link nurse and that role within Te Whatu Ora. So again, it's how we can help clinical practice with what we're doing. Another project I've done was the nursing perspectives of the nurse sensitive indicators. So what are the things nurses do that might make a difference to the outcomes for patients? And currently we're in partnership with Ashburton Hospital on researching for nursing there. So I have to say, a lot of the research that I actually do is the behind the scenes stuff. How do we prepare people? How do we have them ready? I don't make big discoveries about things or invent stuff, but to me it's the underpinnings of it that is important in how we hold the system up there. Nurse Maud have been wonderful partners with us for quite a few years now, certainly over the whole time that I have been in the Centre for Postgraduate Nursing and probably before that. As research partners and community nursing services, they've worked very closely with us. So a recent project that we've done with them, it was about looking at quality indicators for the community-based wound care centre. So all of this is to help progress nursing. The other thing that we've partnered with Nurse Maud to do a lot is the summer studentships, and my great thanks to Nurse Maud's organisation who has supported this every year and given the students projects to do that are important clinical projects, as you'll see from looking at that, you know, compression bandaging in the community, models of care for home care nursing, clinical deterioration in the community, nursing management and the prevalence of wounds, really important projects to do. The other thing I love about these summer studentships is we take all sorts of students. They aren't necessarily, in fact, they're most often not nursing students doing these because of the time of year they are. But we've managed to bring a whole lot of medical students and students from other professions in to do these projects under the supervision of nursing, working with Nurse Maud and nursing, and I think that's a great interprofessional thing. And the value to those students that they've seen when they come back and like, what those nurses are doing, that's, you know, absolutely amazing. So I think we're developing healthcare professionals in a really good way in doing this and getting them thinking about research and seeing where evidence goes for practice. That does make a difference. The other group that we're working with is a collaboration of educational researchers. So we've been looking at the quality standards for practice and working with universities right across Australia, and Melbourne's been leading that with us. So again, we're just developing that. The Council of Deans research is starting to do some nursing workforce research now, and that's going to be very important in the coming days with such a shortage of nurses that we have, how we can actually build that nursing workforce. And I'd like to acknowledge some of the studies we've done with our other colleagues. So Opportunity is the other thing with nursing research, isn't it? You need to be responsive at the time something's needed. So population health worked with us in terms of COVID-19 during that time. So it wasn't a project we took 10 years planning and got all the funding for. It was, what do we need to look at this point in time with nursing working under the circumstances it was during the pandemic. And they have flow-on effects, those projects. I'd really like to acknowledge my interprofessional education work that I'm doing with Maggie Meeks and Heather Jocelyn and Kay Mulligan and Dale Sheehan. There's a couple of projects going on there, and that's bringing together Canterbury University, Te Whatu Ora, our department, ARA, and working together about what we need to do for our interprofessional education for health professionals. We've had some fascinating projects with that, looking at telehealth and working with the med students and the nurses. And then there was a clinical learning environments project that I was fortunate to be involved with as well. And I think that clinical focus on those learning environments was a really important project, that one, which Dale Sheehan led. So you can see we do all sorts of stuff. It's just as well I didn't put them all in there, or we'd be here a while. But to give you an idea of what we actually, how we work with our partners. The other thing I think is really important is our student research as a postgraduate department. So we have significant numbers of students, as the VC mentioned. Research projects, dissertation and theses, we have PhD students doing things. These people are all registered nurses or nurse practitioners or graduates who will become nurses, and the important contributions that they're going to make to clinical practice really underpins what we do with these students and the commitments of our staff in supervising these students, because we have vast numbers of students in any given year who will be undertaking projects. And this is just an example of, you know, some of the projects that would go on and make a difference. Looking at in situ simulation in acute care was a project we did in Dunedin. We had a PhD student who was looking at the effects of multiple sclerosis. So you can see we have quite a lot of different sorts of project. And then working with Helen from the Diabetes Centre, there was a project around wound imaging that was part of Helen's degree. So our students make immense contributions to what's going on out there as well. I'd like to thank everybody else who works with us, who's not part of that academic or research world, but our department would not actually function without all these other people, because we have a complicated sort of students who we need to liaise with Te Whatu Ora and, you know, private healthcare providers and all sorts of things, and the service divisions do an amazing job with that, of getting people enrolled, sorting out their fees and things, giving them IT services, human resources. Property services gives us a spot to sit. Student services supports all the students. It's a big place, a university, and there's lots of people holding hands, and my thanks to them. So where did we get to after all that? I'm very happy to say that we are ranked in the top 100 nursing schools in the world and have been for the last 3 years. So shows what good staff we have. And that's important to students. Interesting, Suze. I didn't specifically ask the Dean to introduce that, but she knows these things. It is the people. It is all the people that I work with here. That's why I'm standing here doing a professorial lecture. It's actually all for you people, because you are the important people in this, everybody that's been there, and our students, and this is just our staff that I have the pictures of here. You can see how I'm surrounded and supported. But everybody that we work with in the university everyone is incredibly important to this. So, in the year of the nurse educator, love their slogan. Behind great nurses are great educators. And I think that sums up what it's like for us here in Te Waipunamu. That we're right behind the great nurses who work out there. So, finally, my thanks to all our academic, clinical, nursing staff, administrative staff, clinical partners, everybody that supports nursing. That's what this professorial appointment is about. It's about nursing at Otago, what we do in partnership with others for the good of patients and the nursing profession. So my thanks to you all. I'll let you go. I should have thanked my family, shouldn't I?
Do it now.
Thank you to the long-suffering ones who have actually been through that whole journey. And to my husband, who thinks this never ends, and my son, who when he was about this big asked me if I'd finished my homework yet. I'm not sure. I might still be doing my homework.
Kia ora koutou. I'm Trish Priest. I'm the Acting Pro-Vice-Chancellor of Health Sciences. I'm based in Dunedin, although I did spend a couple of years here and learning things in this lecture theatre a long time ago. I want to echo the Vice-Chancellor in saying that going to IPLs is one of the great pleasures of my job. It's always so interesting to learn something about the amazing people we have working in health sciences at Otago. My job is to make some comments about the content and significance of the lecture. I've got two jobs, that's the first one. And I just want to start by noting that as far as we're... Sorry, I was told that too and I completely forgot. As far as we're aware, that's the first IPO where anybody has thanked the service division staff. And I think that is a measure of the kind of person that Philippa is. I don't know her well. I've been on a number of Zoom call meetings and so on with of various kinds, but the fact that she very rarely said I during that lecture and said we a lot, I think says something about the amazingly collaborative and generous person she is. I want to start just by talking about a little bit about significance. So we all know, and COVID has broken wide open the importance of nurses, both the numbers and the scope of practice in the health service. And so Philippa's work is incredibly valuable nationally and internationally because it's contributing to both of those things that the country desperately needs. The content, I think, was so interesting because we have a really good picture of the Centre for Nursing, Postgraduate Nursing Studies, I forgot the postgraduate, and all of the things that the centre does. And it's amazing to hear that incredibly kind of acknowledging others approach that Philippa has. But I do just want to correct her slightly and say that the promotion to professor is actually given to an individual, and this is actually about Philippa and her achievements. and we look at teaching and research and service, and it's about Philippa. This lecture is us celebrating Philippa's promotion. She has celebrated everyone she works with, and that's absolutely fantastic. But I do just want to celebrate Philippa herself and her role in all of that. So she talked a bit about how many amazing opportunities there are for collaboration and how generous people are. I just want to say that it takes someone to step into those opportunities, and people are often generous to people who are good to work with and generous back. So it speaks to your character and skills and approach, that you find those opportunities for collaboration and that they are successful.
I've read Philippa's CV before coming here, and I'm struck by her passion for the nursing workforce development and its success. And you wouldn't necessarily know it, but she has done a lot of supervising of students and supervising of projects. She's done a lot of marking of other people's projects, and so much service to her discipline and to academia in general that contribute to her success as professor. And her talking about her reach both across New Zealand and into international environments is another example of how important it is that someone like Philippa is out there doing that stuff. It doesn't just happen. It's an active process. It seems to me, I'm not a nurse and I'm not totally in that world, but that Philippa's made an important contribution to nursing as a research underpinned healthcare discipline through her leadership and through the programs of teaching and her own research. And I think that's really important as nursing itself progresses, and you're an important part of that. You're kind of steering the ship from behind in the way that you see it, but you're definitely, your leadership and your achievements have been really important in there. So I'm just going to move on to my second task, which is to propose a formal vote of thanks to Philippa for her work, for her passion, for her career, and for her lecture, and to congratulate her again on being promoted to professor.
Oh, tēnā koe, Trish, and thank you for your poroaki, which I think sums up the feeling in the room. We're so proud of you, Philippa, and it's just a wonderful, special occasion. So without further ado, can you all be upstanding, Etu, for the academic party? And we'd like to invite you now to join for food and getting together. So thank you, everyone.